Have you ever actually stopped to think about the paradox of combining the extreme burning heat of a chili pepper with the sharp, freezing shock of peppermint? I mean, on the surface, they are complete opposites, right? One literally sets your mouth on fire, and the other makes you feel like you've just inhaled a blizzard. But what if I told you that combining these two extreme sensations actually unlocks a biological superpower hidden deep within our cells? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into how fire and ice combine to create this massive, almost unbelievable synergy that radically lowers inflammation and pain.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one side, we've got capsaicin. That's the active compound derived from chili peppers. It's the fire. And on the flip side, we have menthol, the active compound found in mint. That's the ice. Now, on their own, they cause intense, completely opposite sensations that, let's be honest, can actually be quite irritating to the body. But science has recently uncovered something amazing. When you put these two opposing forces together, they don't just fight each other out. They actually cooperate. Together, they create this physiological and chemical synergy that is literally rewriting the rulebook on how we treat musculoskeletal pain and chronic inflammation. So, to really get how this works, let's look at Section 1, the body's thermostat gatekeepers. Basically, your body has these tiny, biological thermostats built right into your cell membranes. They're these specialized proteins that act as literal gatekeepers, protecting us from extreme environmental temperatures. First up, meet TRPV1. You can think of this one as your body's built-in fire alarm receptor. It's naturally activated when your skin is exposed to elevated, noxious heat, specifically any temperature crossing about 42 degrees Celsius. But here's the kicker. Capsaicin also perfectly binds to this exact same receptor. When capsaicin binds to TRPV1, boom, it triggers that intense burning sensation. However, a really fascinating thing happens with regular application. It actually desensitizes the nerve endings over time. It does this by depleting a neuropeptide called substance P, which is the exact messenger responsible for transmitting pain signals to your brain. So over time, that fire alarm actually quiets down, giving you localized pain relief.
Now, looking at the other end of the thermometer, we have TRPM8. This is your body's primary molecular sensor for cold. It triggers the alarm when ambient temperatures drop below 28 degrees Celsius. And yep, you guessed it, menthol activates this exact receptor. When menthol binds to TRPM8, it throws open these calcium channels and provides that familiar, soothing, icy sensation we all know. This acts as a counter-irritant. Essentially, it distracts your brain from deeper musculoskeletal pain by flooding your nervous system with a strong cooling signal. So we've got our fire alarm and we've got our ice sensor. But what exactly happens when you trigger both of them at the exact same time? Well, that brings us to Section 2. Hacking the pain network. Now, what's really interesting about this cross-desensitization concept is that these compounds absolutely do not stay in their own lanes. Researchers found that when you apply menthol, it doesn't just activate the cold receptor, it actually actively inhibits the TRPV1 fire receptor. And the crazy part? It works both ways. When you apply capsaicin, it actually inhibits the TRPM8 cold receptor. They mutually suppress each other's extreme sensory signals in a completely reciprocal, dose-dependent manner. It's like they're talking to each other to dial down the extremes.
So the crucial takeaway here is that by combining them, they basically cancel out the severe extremes. Menthol suppresses capsaicin's intense, sometimes really painful burn, and capsaicin suppresses menthol's severe, shivering cold. What you're left with isn't some chaotic mess of temperature signals. Instead, you get this highly tolerable, deeply soothing analgesic relief. This biological hack alters your pain perception directly at the nerve level, which provides a super effective, completely non-opioid pathway for managing your pain. Now that totally explains the sensory pain relief. But guys, there is a massive, hidden twist to the story, and that brings us to Section 3, the 700x inflammation multiplier. Researchers recently started looking into how these exact spices affect our immune system, and what they found was, honestly, truly shocking. To really understand this, we need to meet the macrophages. These guys are the immune system's cellular first responders. When macrophages detect trouble, like, say, a bacterial infection, they pump out these small signaling proteins called pro-inflammatory cytokines. A major one you might have heard of is called TNF-alpha. Now, this inflammatory response is absolutely vital for fighting off infections. But if these macrophages don't turn off when the job is done, that inflammation becomes chronic. It just operates quietly in the background as a silent killer, fueling some really serious diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and osteoarthritis. Now, I want you to take a look at this staggering number, 699. A landmark study led by Professor Genichiro Amura over at the Tokyo University of Science tested exactly what happens when you treat inflamed macrophages with capsaicin and menthol at the same time. The results didn't just add up, they multiplied. Co-application with capsaicin slashed the amount of menthol needed to suppress that inflammation by exactly 699-fold. That is absolutely huge. And the data beautifully illustrates this. If you look at the bars representing the release of the inflammatory cytokine TNF-alpha, the first bar shows that capsaicin alone lowers inflammation, moderately. The second bar shows menthol alone has a modest effect as well. But just look at the third bar. When you combine them, the inflammation marker is reduced to just a tiny little sliver. We're talking about a several hundredfold reduction compared to when each compound is used entirely alone. I mean, the combination makes the individual compounds look incredibly weak in comparison. So, you're probably wondering, how in the world is this massive biological synergy actually happening inside our cells? Well, it's time for Section 4, the cellular pincer attack. Let's look at exactly how a chili pepper and a mint leaf coordinate such a dramatic reduction in inflammation. Let's look at this quote directly from the lead researcher, Professor Arimura. He notes, "We demonstrated that the synergistic effect is not a coincidence, but is based on a novel mode of action resulting from the simultaneous activation of different intracellular signaling pathways. In plain English, this isn't magic, it's a highly coordinated simultaneous double attack on the inflammation machinery right inside the cell." You can think of it like a cellular pincer maneuver. In step 1, menthol boldly attacks right through the front door. It binds to the TRP channels on the cell membrane, altering calcium signaling to suppress those inflammatory cascades. But in step 2, capsaicin does something totally unexpected. It actually sneaks into the cell through a completely TRP-independent back door. By bypassing the main gate entirely, capsaicin travels deep into the cell to directly suppress core inflammatory drivers like the NF-κB pathway. So they literally trap the inflammation from 2 entirely different angles, completely shutting it down, and they do this at highly diluted, typical dietary level concentrations. How cool is that? Now, this molecular science is absolutely fascinating, but I know what you're thinking. How can we actually use it? Let's move to Section 5, real-world pain relief, to see exactly how this builds into practical applications that you can use safely at home. So, to really harness this anti-inflammatory pincer mechanism, clinical recommendations point us toward a very specific formulation sweet spot. You're going to want to combine a very low-dose capsaicin, we're talking around 0.025 to 0.1%, with a moderate to high concentration of menthol, ranging from about 2 to 10%. This specific ratio is incredibly effective for managing localized chronic conditions like osteoarthritis or diabetic peripheral neuropathy. But listen up, because there is a major safety warning here. You absolutely must never use these combined formulations with a heating pad, a hot compress, or right before a hot bath. Applying external heat massively amplifies the capsaicin-induced TRPV1 vasodilation. Basically, it perceptually overrides the cooling menthol and significantly increases your risk of getting a severe chemical burn. And hey, the same rule applies if you are intensely exercising or experiencing systemic hyperthermia. Basically, if you are sweating and hot, stick to menthol alone. Well, we've explored the biological thermostats, that amazing sensory cross-desensitization, and that incredible almost 700-fold cellular pincer attack that just shuts down immune inflammation. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. How will you use the biological synergy of fire and ice to hack your own inflammation and pain? Because the next time you're dealing with a sore joint or an aching muscle, you might just want to look for a topical gel that harnesses the power of both the chili and the mint. It is just a perfect example of nature and science working beautifully together. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.